Hello and welcome everybody to our webinar today. We just want to make sure that you could hear me. It's just going to be the slide presentation and myself. So are we going to be able to comment or no? No. Okay. Just if people can kind of say in the comment if they can hear me or not, that would be awesome, so that I know. Like you're in. Okay. Okay. If you can hear me properly, I just want to make sure if you can say it in the chat that you can hear me. No? Okay, let's make sure. We're just trying to make sure as the internet is a little bit unstable. Give us 1 second. Sorry for technical difficulties. Oh. Are we reloaded? Sorry, give us a second. We're just having some technical difficulties. Oh, there we go. Okay, so they can hear? Okay, perfect. So we were just told that we're able to be heard. I'm able to be heard so that I can start the presentation. Natasha, we're all good, even though. Sorry, we're good? Okay, awesome. Sorry about that. We are so sorry. We have a very high attendance today in our webinar. If you do have something like the connection, please reload your computer, okay? Or reload your screen, I mean, so that you can get back into the webinar without any interruptions, okay? So we want to begin because there is a lot of information that we want to present today through this presentation. And unfortunately, we won't have time for any questions. But at the end of the presentation, there will be emails to send questions to and other resources to reach out to, okay? So we're going to start with the presentation. My name is Chrissy. I am the infection control trainer here at CD1 Group. And we want to welcome you today, and we are happy to have you attend our webinar on protecting your salon and spa's reputation with best practices in infection control. So as salons and spas, we know in many states or provinces are going to start to be reopening. We need to know what are the minimums of what needs to be done. Okay, so provinces and states might not be able to quickly change their guidelines when we resume back to work. And what's going to happen, what we're going to see is that you'll be questioning, or you're going to see, or how you're going to feel is, how do I know what I'm doing is right? Because we're going to have to take time for those guidelines to be switched and brought up to date. So, and one of the things we're going to see happen when we reopen is the minimum requirement that the state or province has for you in terms of rules for health and public safety. They end up actually being superseded by what your clients are demanding from you. So your clients are more aware now than ever of the importance of sanitation in their daily lives. So with everyone's heightened awareness on hand washing, disinfectants, and so forth, you and your team must be armed with answers relating to your practice. Okay? So as a hands-on industry, social distancing will present a challenge, which in turn can make it hard for your clients to feel comfortable. And though this may be a stressful time, once you reopen, your clients will need your services more than ever. So apart from making your clients feel beautiful, you want them to feel safe and protected under your care as they receive your services. So the success of reopening depends on how comfortable your client feels re-entering in your place of business. So if your client is not comfortable with how you manage or operate after COVID-19, you may start to see that you're losing some business, and that's not what we want to see happen here. And that is why my aim here with today's webinar is with the information that will be presented, it should be able to reinforce your knowledge and give you confidence that you can reopen under strict and proper practices in infection control. Okay, so on that note, we're going to start with our slide. I don't know what's happening. I'm so sorry for that. I'm not too sure. Really? Should I tell them that? Oh, shoot. That was interference that was happening. I am so sorry about that. Please stay on. We got this somewhat back to back to normal. I'm so sorry about that. And we were at starting our first slide. Okay, so sorry once again as we were hacked somehow. Sorry, Natasha, how do I go to the next slide without clicking on it? It's not, just give me 1 second. Instead of clicking on there, how do we go next? Oh, then I have to roll it down all the time. Okay, perfect. So our first slide right here is germs are bad for your business. So we know that when it comes to the health and safety of spa goers, there's no such thing as cutting corners. This must not be done. You should not cut corners on proper sanitation just to save time, money, or effort. Never should have been done before, and for sure should not be done now with our whole post-COVID and still many cases still happening. So we know that cleanliness is not only essential to keeping clients and staff safe while at the spa, but it's also important to the reputation of the business. So salon and spa owners need to ensure that they're offering the cleanest and healthiest environment for their clients and staff. Okay, now we're going to talk about the importance of sanitation. As we see in these bullets, maintaining high standards of hygiene in your salon to promote a clean and healthy environment. The importance for spas as they offer services in which equipment and tools can easily transmit bacteria and viruses to clients and employees. And these viruses are such as HIV, hepatitis B and C, herpes, and flu, to fungus like athlete's foot and nail fungus, and bacteria that can cause skin infections. And that's when we talk a lot as well when we're doing pedicures. Pathogens can spread through direct person-to-person contact, mucous membrane in the eyes and mouth, and breaks in the skin. So now we understand fully, and we talk about cross-contamination. This quickly spreads these germs to other items and surfaces of the area. So now that when we see these bullets here, it heightens our state of mind to understand that sanitation is extremely important. Okay. So to our next slide here. If proper sanitation is not practiced, in addition to the negative, as we see in the first bullet there, negative health consequences for clients and staff, the spa risks health inspector fines. And that's once again the last thing that you would want to be happening right now, especially with having your business was closed for a while, and there might not have been money coming in or flowing in because of that. You do not want to be practicing improper sanitation and then you have these fines or possibly be shut down. Because that's what will happen if your spa is not following the enforced state or provincial guidelines. And if a client believes that any violations are taking place once you reopen and they start coming in, each state or province offers customers the option to report licensed facilities. And this has happened before too. If somebody came in and contracted some kind of foot condition from a pedicure or fungal, they can go up to Health Canada, and there's sections that they can fill out and mention what the salon was and what was the condition that they contracted with that salon, and then further investigation goes and happens to that salon. So you don't want to have it to get to that point. And then don't forget the power of social media. Through that platform, you can receive media backlash, like for example, poor ratings or reviews online, and even business interruption or closure, as we mentioned before, because of improper practices that are not put into place. And with all this in mind, what do we need to remember when managing your sanitation practices and protecting your reputation? Well, the following quote lets us know that you have many responsibilities as a salon professional, but none is more important than protecting your clients' health and safety. So in this portion of our webinar, we will go through some terminology about pathogens and disinfectants. We're going to a little bit bring back our memory to what we might have been taught at an infection control class or back to our college days when we were practicing aesthetics and so forth. So, okay, and just a reminder to all the attendees that the chat has been disabled because we will leave the because we had actually somebody hack in right now. That's why we had that disruption. So we are moderating it, and then afterwards. Yes, and this is able to protect you as well, being in this attendance. But we will put the email at the end for you to ask any questions that I'll get back to you as well. Okay, so no worries, we'll be here to answer all your questions. Okay, so back to this statement here. Returning staff will need to quickly get up to speed and become educated on the risks posed by germs to themselves and their clients. In order to confidently open back your door. So education is going to be needed for yourself as a salon owner and for your staff. It should be mandatory. In addition to their current jobs, the role of infection prevention practitioner will start to accompany your title. It's going to be the new norm, okay, which we're going to be discussing later on. So now we're going to start going into these terminologies, okay, that's going to help us to probably understand what we're dealing with and why sanitation is important. So we have here three different types of microbes that are responsible for spa and salon infections, and we all know this, but it's a refresher to remind us. Bacteria such as Staphylococcus and Mycobacterium, which is our TB, and staph infection gets contracted a lot with foot baths due to improper cleaning and disinfecting of those pipes, as well as your tools as well carry bacteria, your fungi, either your athlete's foot or your nail fungus, and then your viruses such as your influenza and so forth, and what we're dealing with right now with COVID. Now you're going to go into some safety words to understand. So these are cleaning. So we need to differentiate between them because the words cleaning, sanitizing, sterilizing, and disinfecting all have to do with maintaining a safe and healthy space, but their actual meaning differs a bit. So here's a little bit to kind of understand if you have kind of not forgot, but kind of had these words mixed up in your speech and your verbiage when you're talking to your client too. It's very important. So cleaning, this is the act of removing dirt and debris from a surface or item and preparing it for disinfection, okay, which is needed. Not all cleaners have that capability. Sorry, not all disinfectants have the capability of being a cleaner as well together in one. So 2 steps are needed when disinfecting. Then you have your sanitizing. So sanitizing helps to reduce bacteria on a surface as well. When we're talking about sanitizing, our hand sanitizers for our hands that we want to implement in between washes. Never replace it because hand washing is your best fight against your viruses with soap and water. Okay. Then you have sterilization. This helps to destroy or eliminate all forms of microbial life. Now, what's missing in this equation or in these definitions is, give me 1 second, is our disinfection. Okay, so if used properly and according to the label instruction, disinfecting helps kill pathogens such as bacteria, fungi, and viruses. And then we have 3 different levels of disinfection that we need to be aware of. Where do our services fit in? Where do our implements fit into these different types of levels of disinfection? And we know that when we're talking about disinfection or disinfectants, one of the questions on people's mind is how to know if the disinfectant they're using is effective against the virus that causes COVID-19. So the good news is that the coronaviruses like COVID-19 are envelope viruses. And when they're enveloped, they have a coating, envelope viruses. They have this lipid coating that can be broken down with disinfectants and killed. Okay, so therefore, they are generally quite susceptible to disinfectants. The downside, though, is that confirming that the product has been approved can be a bit challenging. So therefore, the product must be a hospital or broad spectrum disinfectant product registered with an EPA or a label, or Health Canada, registered with Health Canada DIN number. Okay, and it has to have an efficacy on the label, has to be labeled when they have a DIN number or they're EPA approved against bactericidal, virucidal, and fungicidal. And it must show it's effective against a non-envelope virus like polio. So how to find out which disinfectants meet the Health Canada requirement? Well, if you're in Canada, your disinfectants will be registered with Health Canada with a DIN number. So locate that on your disinfectant. If it doesn't have one, it hasn't been third-party tested and approved that it can kill what it's saying it's killing on the label. So that's why it's very important to watch for that. For the US, it's registered with EPA or FDA depending on what type of product. So if it's a high level, it falls under FDA and has a registered number with either FDA or EPA. So check for that number as well on the label from the product that you're using. Now, no product will be labeled for COVID-19 yet, but many will have coronavirus efficacy on their label, and it can be available as well on their website with any product sheets about the disinfectant you're using. Keep aware that disinfection, as we mentioned before in our stages of like cleaning and sanitation, so disinfection works on clean surfaces. So be sure you clean all the surface before with soap and water or a chemical cleaner for hard and non-porous surfaces. And we, dealing in Canada, and I teach in Canada infection control, I deal with the product Preempt, and there are such as one-step disinfectants that on a small soil load, that Preempt RTU or the wipes can clean and disinfect in one step. So now if we look at these definitions here, low level, a low level disinfectant, they do not kill mycobacteria or bacterial spores, but can be used on hand contact surfaces such as countertops, doorknobs, light switches, chairs, and neck rests. The same thing can go into your intermediate level, but intermediate level disinfectants kill vegetative bacteria, most viruses, and can be used on instruments that touch intact skin and on surfaces contaminated with blood or bodily fluid. So it's very important to understand these definitions, and for your staff to understand these definitions, to know what you're using, to be educated on what you're using, and for what service you're doing and for what tools. Now, the third definition is your high-level disinfection. So this destroys vegetative bacteria, mycobacteria, fungi, and enveloped lipid and non-enveloped viruses. Enveloped and non-enveloped viruses, and reduces bacterial spores. And this level of disinfection should be used on instruments that do not penetrate the skin, but can come in contact with non-intact skin or mucous membranes like nail clippers, cuticle pushers, and nail scissors. So another thing to be in mind that we're talking about disinfection, which I didn't put up here, are sterilization, but we know that sterilization is going to be able to kill everything, including your spores. But the other thing we want to understand about our disinfectant that we're using, that during this pandemic, salons and spas, they're going to resort, many of them, to using harsh disinfectants in a bid to kill pathogens. So we want to be mindful of we don't want to be bringing anything harsh in that's going to affect our respiratory system or that of our clients or staff. So you should be familiar with the precautionary language associated with these products to ensure that you're not being exposed to unintended side effects, which could include skin irritations, respiratory issues, or necessitate special storage and handling considerations. So do you have to wear goggles or an apron or gloves or when you're handling this disinfectant, because it's going to cause some kind of irritation, or this fumes can cause your respiratory issues. Then we start going into the type of tools that we're going to come across and identifying what criteria are they under. So you have your non-critical, your semi-critical, and your critical tools. So when we say non-critical, these are instruments that touch but never enter or penetrate the skin or mucous membrane. The method of infection control that you're going to use, a disinfectant, can be a low-level disinfection. So low-level disinfection to intermediate will be your salons, your hairstylist. Then you start going to semi-critical. These are instruments that do not penetrate the skin but can come in contact with non-intact, which is open skin, or mucous membrane. So these are your nippers, your comedone extractors, your nail cuticles, your nail cutters, your cuticle pushers, and your nail scissors. So your type of disinfectant that you're going to use is an intermediate to a high level. If you're talking about aesthetic tools, you're doing your pedicures, your manicures, you're doing your microblading. Well, your microblading can fall under your critical tools because you are, with microblading, you are not coming in contact with intact skin, you are making slices into the skin. So in that sense, you're going to need to be sterilizing. So high level, between high level and sterilizing are your aesthetic tools. So when we talk about critical tools, these are instruments that enter, penetrate the skin, and we would put microblading under that, and maybe hyperpigmentation or your permanent makeup. But these are scissors, needles, surgical instruments, cuticle cutters, corn and callus slicers that have to be sterilized. So once again, these are important for you and your staff to understand, to make sure that you're using the proper solution to the proper type of tools, what they are deemed, okay? Then we go to tools of the trade. They are such thing called as single-use tools, and there are multi-use tools. So your single-use tools usually are made from porous material like foam, paper, and wood, and cannot be properly cleaned and disinfected. Then you have your multi-use tools. These are made from non-porous material like glass, stainless steel, and hard plastic, which allows them to be reprocessed. So that means they can be cleaned frequently and disinfected in between use. And we're going to go through a list of these. Just once again, these are reminders. You're going to be able to educate this to your staff as well, or they should be able to be taking a training on this to refresh their mind on these proper sanitations, as we mentioned before. We'll talk about that further down. But your single-use aesthetic tools or items that you're using on your customer for the services are such things as emery boards, nail buffers, wooden cuticle pushers. All these are porous and need to, your foam or paper slippers, sanding bands, your toe separators. You see that a lot being reused, should not. Pedicure razor blades, and then for hair, your bobby pins, your end papers, your foils, your neck strips, and your razors. Then you start going into your multi-use. So these are all your hard plastic, all your stainless steel. So you have your nail clippers, your nippers, your cuticle pushers, your comedone extractors, stainless steel nail files. The list goes on. It's right there for you to see. And then for hair, it's your blow dryers. Your blow dryer casing, your brushes, your capes, your booster seats for your children, for the children to get their hair cut, your handheld mirrors, your neck cushions, your smocks, your scissors, your spray bottles, and the list goes on. Then we go into some other items that you might be questioning. So how to properly launder porous materials. So any linens and porous materials that may have been left in the salon, clean or dirty, prior to the closure, should be washed. But then you need to also, when you're opening, during business and you have to clean your laundry, your launder, you need to wash them on a high heat with detergent and dry them until the material is hot to the touch. There should never be any moisture to them or dampness to any of the linen. They have to be hot to the touch and dried right away. And then stored in a closed covered cabinets until they are ready to be used. What should you do with other used products? For example, your waxes, your pomades, or your pucks, your wooden spatulas. Your wooden spatulas should be tossed after each use, but then you have your plastic spatulas that can be cleaned and disinfected. And then you have, for example, for hairsprays, texture sprays, mousse, and aerosols, these need to all be cleaned and disinfected thoroughly and regularly because you're holding these to spray onto your client's hairs or to open up the cap and so forth. Now you will be going into your key disinfection tips. So read the label. Every disinfectant solution is different. So whichever brand you buy or whichever type you're using is different. So you must always read the label to understand how to use the product safely and properly. Always follow the manufacturer's instruction so that you are ensuring that you are achieving the disinfection or sterilization. Pay attention to contact time. Very important, as contact time on a label refers to the length of time a disinfectant takes to kill microorganisms on a surface. That means how long the surface has to remain wet, completely immersed, your tool or your surface, in order to kill any possible pathogens and achieve disinfection. Some products can be effective in as little as 1 minute, while others might take up to 10 minutes. So it's very, very, very important not to immediately spray and wipe or dry your product off as it needs to sit on the surface. You should properly dilute concentrated disinfectants. So when diluting, we should be aware that accuracy is important. You can't just say, okay, a little bit of glug-glug this, a little bit of glug-glug of the water. You need to make sure you're following the dilution ratios, or else once again, you're not achieving that efficacy against killing your viruses, your bactericides, your fungicides, okay? So you should always measure before mixing and make sure you follow the label dilution ratios. An easy alternative is trying to use ready-to-use solutions. So if there's a company out there that has ready-to-use, which will require no prior mixing or hand dilution. Do not soak your tools overnight. This will leave your tools only the amount of contact time that is required. Once it's done 20 minutes, it won't achieve anything else. It's done its job. But also, if you do tend to leave them in, you're going to, with these long-term soaking, you can cause compatibility issues with your tools, and then this can lead to contaminating your solution. You contaminate your solution, this in turn, your efficacy against your pathogens is not effective any longer, or it's less effective, and you're not achieving full disinfection or sterilization. Know the reuse period. Some disinfectants you have to dispose daily. Some are reused. So once again, if we go back to the brand of Preempt that's allowed for Canada, that's used in Canada, they can have some that are reused up to your tool disinfectants up to 14 days reuse. So very important once again to read the label. Then we just added in here a little bit of a little definition of cross-contamination, even though we mentioned it at the beginning, but we know the process by which bacteria or other microorganisms are unintentionally transferred from one substance or object to another with harmful effects. So especially now with the fear of viruses like COVID-19, preventing cross-contamination is something that you and your team should be avoiding every day. You should change your gloves. If you touch something and you have to touch your new clientele, but you use the gloves to go disinfect, you need to avoid cross-contamination. Same with your tools, where you rest them, where you place them. Did you take a dirty tool and place it in the clean contaminated bin? In the clean bin, it gets cross-contaminated, okay? So be very mindful. Then we start to get into just a little bit of information. There is so much information that's going to be out there, and when you're following your health regulations, the health guidelines that are going to come out, newer ones, updated ones. This is just a little bit of a little preview, because our webinar can go on really, really long with a lot of information. That's going to be when you're going to check with your state or your provincial guidelines. So some things you want to understand for inspection. Sanitation is not only important, we said, as for the health of the client, but it's important for the reputation of your business. So any indication of an unsanitary spa on social media, as we mentioned before, can be extremely damaging to a business. And that's why health inspections are essential. So following these tips that we have here and what your state guidelines or your provincial guidelines are going to say, it's going to be very, very important. For example, we're talking about surfaces in this first slide here. You want to make sure that all your surfaces, including massage and facial tables, the list goes on of what surfaces you're going to be cleaning. Technically, everything that's going to be high-touched areas in your salon are included as well into your equipment or your stations. So, and it continues on to saying your stylist station, your reception area, your countertops, even your retail area, your waiting room area are need to be regularly cleaned and disinfected. Contaminated spa surfaces can transmit a number of germs between clients and workers, so including bacteria that may cause skin infection and staph infections. So we know cleaning the surface is very important. Be sure to regularly replace or repair furniture if any damage is present, as it will impact the ability to clean and disinfect properly. So that's very important too. When you go back into your salon, to check and see any furniture that might be compromised that you have to get rid of and replace. Always clean linens and towels, and encourage clients and staff to wash hands frequently and wear gloves necessary. Once again, the list can go on. The list can be more longer than this once you get your state guidelines and regulations. So let's go to the second one that will help, that we're going to talk about, is your passive test when it comes to disinfect foot baths and your foot baths. Okay, so your pedicures are among the most popular spa services, we can say, but bacteria and fungi can quickly spread from client to client without proper sanitation. So unclean foot baths can easily spread, as we mentioned before, our pathogens, for example, our bacteria or fungi, for example, athlete's foot and nail fungus, and then that staph infection. To prevent the spread of germs, foot baths should be cleaned and disinfected after every client, and time of disinfection should be achieved. So it's a little bit more, depending on what type of foot bath you have. You might have the foot bath that is called circulating foot bath, which has a plumbing system, an extra plumbing system that helps to circulate the water back in. If you don't clean those pipes after with your concentrate, with a concentrate disinfectant, after every client, what happens is that biofilm gets formed into those pipes. And when the water shoots back out for your client to enjoy that spa bubbly effect of the water in their feet, and to help to disinfect the feet too, like if you're putting a salt or something in there, that's going to bring back all that biofilm, which biofilm means that it has all the fungus, all the toenail clippings, all the oils, all the bacteria, all built up like a magnet together, and it starts to bring that back out. And what I say is that your client is bathing in someone else's gunk or junk. Okay, so that's how they get staph infection. So if it's a non-circulating foot bath, they have jets on the side. These have to be removed, right? So these have to be removed, opened, spread on the table or somewhere. So the parts that are in there have to be as well cleaned and disinfected before you put the parts back together and put these jets on the side. So your circulating foot baths that have these jets are replacing the non-circulating foot baths that have these jets are replacing the circulating foot baths. So they're not making these anymore, not production anymore, but there might be some salons that still have them since they kept them in good condition. So understand what type of foot bath you have in the salon you're working in. And having a log for both your foot baths and your tools, so that you record when the cleaning and disinfection occurred, and to keep that log up to date so that it can be shown to an inspector if they request it. Then you have your reprocessing your tools. So your reusable tools that we had mentioned before, like your tweezers, your common node extractors, all of these need to be high-level disinfectant, as we mentioned, because aesthetic tools are deemed semi-critical or sterilized after each use. When disinfecting tools, make sure there is enough disinfectant solution, because as we mentioned before, that contact time is what's important in order to achieve disinfection and sterilization. And they have to be fully immersed into the solution. So you might have a nice soaker tray to put those in there. But also make sure that with the soaker trays, you're not reaching your fingers in there to remove the solutions, the tools after the contact time, because you will have cross-contaminated that solution. You would have contaminated that solution, and then it won't be effective. What you should be using is a disinfected tongue. Have a tongue with you to be able to lift those tools out of there, or some of them have a lifting tray. Bring them to the sink, rinse them, and then you can dry that lifting tray and put it back in. Do not put it back in wet, because once again, it's going to compromise your disinfectant or your sterilant. Dispose of any single use. We mentioned what they were and that you shouldn't be using them again, because these can contaminate people with cause infections. And then we go into, so this is just some these are just some guidelines to remember, because this is what health inspectors are going to be looking into, and much more now because of what we're dealing with COVID. So now let's go to another statement here that says infection prevention is a team effort. Indeed, it is. This means getting you and your team up to speed on infection control. So as a salon and spa owner, you need to ensure everyone in your business is protecting your client's safety, following the appropriate procedures, and as a result, they're helping you build back your business because it was a very hard time being closed for so long. Now you need to build up your reputation and build up your business, and your team is there to help you do that. That is why you're called a team. As a spa director or manager, you're responsible to manage the day-to-day operations of the business. However, you're also in charge of other important duties, including enforcing spa sanitation standards, workplace safety, and implementing staff training. And then to develop an excellent team training program, you need to ensure you're covering all the bases. So that would include, like the information I mentioned at the beginning of this webinar. There's going to be education for that, so then to get refreshed on further definitions, further pathogens, much more, because the list will be much bigger in an infection control training. And then also with your team, it leads us to this slide right here, to understand what your guidelines are. So this is going to be something as a spa owner to educate yourself, to go and check. So if you're in Canada, go check your provincial guidelines, your Health Canada guidelines. If you're in the States, check your state guidelines. Also checking it globally as well. Okay, so when it comes to cleaning and disinfecting, most of the guidelines will have a similar recommendation, but according to your state and your province, so I'm speaking both for Canada and the US, they can be slightly different. So your guidelines, it's checking to include that the facility must utilize EPA and FDA and Health Canada DIN registered disinfectants that demonstrate efficacy against bacteria, viruses, fungi when used according to manufacturer's instructions. So these are all going to be in your guidelines that are going to be produced by your province and by your state and globally. So now it is talking about determining the missing links. So what questions does your team have on current protocols or best practices? Once again, they need to be re-educated. Do they have these concerns or questions? Or do they have concerns about the product? So it's important to connect with your team and have an open discussion on cleaning and sanitation. This should be done prior to opening of your salon so that they're prepared when you once open. You will learn from the group firsthand if they have any issues or they are unsure of the best protocols to follow for certain equipment. So you'll learn that before you open. As part of your duties, you also need to ensure worker safety and check in with staff to make sure that they know how to handle the product safely. So whatever product you're bringing into your salon, do they know how, or disinfectant or cleaner, do they know how to use this properly prior to reopening? And as we mentioned, some disinfectants or cleaners contain harsh chemicals, which means you may need to wear personal protective equipment, including gloves, goggles, or other PPE. So does your staff know about that? Also, learn from your team any client questions they've been asked. So if when you start doing services and your staff has been asked these questions, maybe they don't know how to answer them, but they should be relaying that back to you as a salon and spa owner. Then you can develop positioning on these frequently asked questions to make certain everyone is aligned and is saying the same thing that's proper and feels comfortable answering. Okay. So remember, confident staff will result in customer trust. So now talk about team meeting and discussion. So talk to them, talk to your team about when you've suggested your date of opening is going to be, what are you going to be doing and who is going to be doing it. Availability, discuss each staff member's availability in detail and what hours of operations are going to be, because this is all going to change. It's not going to be the same as it used to. Communication system, regular meetings. You should be having these regular meetings even once you've opened with your staff and ensuring clients are kept apprised of your new regulations. Your new way of making money, selling products online, new services that you're going to bring in to build up the business. Safety fee, you're going to have to add this fee onto your services because now your whole staff, including your clients, are going to be wearing PPE equipment. Masks are going to be mandatory. Gloves are going to be mandatory. And this is something that you as a salon owner have to provide for your staff and for clients. Clients shouldn't be bringing their own masks into your salon. So this is going to be added cost, and this is going to have to reflect into the service fees. You're going to have to be bringing sneeze shields into your place of business. Once again, added cost. Okay. Onboard checklist for new hires. So you probably might have bringing later on when the business picks up, you're going to be bringing on new hires. Are they going to be, they need to know what's going on in the salon. What are these new procedures you've implemented that have to be strictly followed. So you can create a customized onboard checklist for your new hires to get them up to speed. Have this checklist for them to read it over, to understand what you and your team have come up with to help build up your business and to give it a good reputation. So when creating the checklist, you'll want to customize it to fit your spa and to include the services you provide and your business vision and more. So when you're creating this checklist for your new hires, but this checklist should have also been implemented for your staff that you already have. From a sanitation standpoint, we recommend making a list of what online or in-person courses your staff should complete. And we'll get to that soon of what our company will be doing. And then very important as well is to have a resource binder that has all these informations in there. So it will include your protocols on cleaning and disinfecting, your safety data sheets, right? You also need to include any so as your safety data sheets, you need to include these in your binder. They are mandatory to have them into your binder, into your salon, because these are required for all chemicals that you have in your workplace, and they provide guidance on how to work safely with these products. So that should be in your resource binder as well. The health inspectors will ask where are these sheets. These documents too will also let you know if personal protective equipment is required, what first aid measures are needed if they come in contact with the solution, okay? And then add into your resource binder, apart from having your salon and spa checklist and you have your disinfecting log charts, you should also put in there your client frequently asked questions, because this is something that you can look back, or your new hires can look back as well to see, oh, these are the questions that are going to be answered. Am I well prepared to answer them appropriately? So overall, this should be your team's one-stop resource to answer all their questions in the moment. And now we're going to be talking about our online training. So team training. After connecting with your team, so you've connected with them, you know when you're going to reopen, when they're going to get back, it's time to to get to the structure of the training. So training is certainly important when hiring new staff, but you should also refresh your current employees' knowledge and keep them up to date. That means your current employees as well will need to take these courses that are going to be implemented. So on that note, on the next slide, as you see here, infection control education, we at CBUN Group are happy to announce that we're working on an extensive infection control program, from online education to a salon solution infection control audit. This will be the gold standard for infection control. So for now, it's in the progress. It's being created, and not being created, but being to its fruition as we speak. And if for now, what you can do is you can go to www.infectioncontroleducation.com, which you can see it on the top of the page there, and register for this program. And in the meantime, you will be directed to a pre and post opening PDF file, and you can download this and you can start to implement these in your salon and spa. So if you haven't opened yet, download these, get them out there, put them in your resource binder. Start from now creating that resource binder. If you have everything ready from now, you're armed, you're prepped, you're ready to go in with full force and get your business back to where it should be, and having your customers be, your clients be more inclined to come in, because a lot of them will be scared still. So this is going to be a great resource as a salon and spa owner to have and educate with your team. So please, if you can, get when you're done with this webinar, get onto this website and register. And you'll be once you register, you'll be informed more of the changes, the additions to it. You'll be informed once you're registered. So we're very happy for this. Marketing and client communication. So once your team is all aligned and your sanitation protocols, on your sanitation protocols, now is your chance to shine and promote all your wonderfully put practices with your clients. So that's where your marketing comes. And the following is another statement that speaks on its own. So we see 91% of consumers regularly read reviews, it's a high rate, and then 84% trust online reviews as much as a personal recommendation. So this is where your marketing, what do you call it? Your marketing information or your marketing tools are going to be very important. So proudly share your background and training. Let them know what you've been doing this whole time while you've been closed, to be prepared, to have them to be welcomed back into your salon. Let them know this is your time to shine as well, and to make them feel comfortable. So before service as well, these are some things you can implement. Before a service, you can make your clients aware that you have obtained specialized training on the topic of infection prevention. And the conversation could be somewhat like, hello, before we get started, I want you to be aware of my training and certification. So once you mention that, if you have a certification, to show it to them, if the salon has a certificate that it has posted it on, but let them know that you've done a course with a certification. And then you can tell them to keep you safe while in our care. I have properly washed my hands and disinfected all my work surfaces and tools. So communicate this with your client. Then you can also open up the conversation, ask, do you have any questions or concerns? Bring them into this this consultation you're having with them. Let them respond and find out how they feel. This messaging would only take a few seconds, but can go a long way to reassuring your clients and even distinguish your services from others. If the client has more questions, you could offer to show them how you disinfect your tools and have the protocols handy. You might be surprised at how impressed they'll be to know the lengths you go to ensure your equipment is clean and safe. So show if you're going to have to clean the surface right in front of them, show that. Show the steps you're taking. Have the product that you're using as a disinfectant visible for them to see as well what you're using. Also, you should remember that you have the right to refuse service to anyone you feel may be a risk of infection or pose a health risk to others. So remember, safety starts with you. Then we go into our marketing tools that we have here. This is just an example. Once again, I deal with Canada training for pre-em products. So we have window decals that are going to go outside your window to ensure that you are keeping the salon spa clean, disinfectant. And then you can have these things called tent cards that you place on your stations that have been cleaned and disinfected to let the customer know that you have just finished cleaning and disinfecting this area after the previous client. Because you want to take your marketing to the next level with these marketing tools. It's a great visual aid for your staff to keep track of which areas they have turned over during these busy periods when you start to pick up as well. These tent cards will play an important role. And then also store signages. You might hear this a lot and anywhere that you're reading articles and this and that, but have signages and have posters up. So this is just an example I put in here that you can put up a sign that says, our salon and spa is well stocked with disinfectants, sanitizers, and cleaning supplies. We will require clients and staff to wash their hands before undergoing any services. We're following a rigorous cleaning schedule to ensure all stations, high-touch surfaces, towels, capes, tools, stations, and products are disinfected on a regular basis. Employees who show flu-like symptoms will be required to stay home until they are symptom-free. So these signages like this, that's a guideline to show your clients, put them up, have them somewhere along your business. Also posters. You can access posters from World Health Organization for hand washing, place them into your washrooms, but also they have posters on hand sanitation because true enough, even when we're using hand sanitizers, we aren't using them properly. So placing these up onto your walls, into your washrooms, as signages to help customers also to be reminded how important hand washing and sanitizing their hands is, okay? The next slide talks about your digital marketing. So for your digital marketing, you have your website. So you should promote on your website how you are setting a new standard for cleanliness and are proud of your practices. So a suggestion is in your About Us section, you can stand out and share your daily procedures that keep clients safe. In your staff bio section, add in any new certification or any additional training initiatives. You can also explain how you are partnering with experts to keep your clients protected and beautiful every day. Your social media can be a great tool because we know, once again, the power of social media to connect with your customers in a more casual manner and show off your procedures in action. Especially with current events, it's important to show how you are staying aware and informed. So promote any recent certification even on your social media. This is just one way you can show you are preparing to reopen. So get your social media active with that. You can also, and I've seen a lot of people who have done their trainings are posting their certificates so their clientele that's following them knows what they've done during this time. You can also post pictures or videos of real-time cleaning and disinfection, giving your customers further confidence and promoting your transparency. You can add the certifications on your Instagram and Facebook bios to help differentiate your business. You can also be communicating with your own customers through email to share what's going on. So let them know the steps. Send a nice email out before you reopen, telling them the reopening date, but also letting them know what steps you're taking to maintain a germ-free facility and the additional protocols you're putting in practice to ensure everyone's safety. So send this email. It's a letter of reassurance to your clients, addressing that you understand their concerns and that you have outdone yourselves in preparing your business for them. And list some of these changes you've done for them, okay? Now you are going into our reminders, okay? We're almost at the end of our webinar and some reminders that you want to communicate regularly. So post regular updates and measures you're taking to keep your salon clean and safe from COVID-19. Keep that communication fluid with your staff. Communication is key to making sure things align and flow well in your business. Follow consistent cleaning and disinfection. So hold yourself to the highest standards when it comes to protecting your personal workspace and make it your responsibility to have a clean and disinfected workstation. Make visible your approved disinfectants, as I mentioned, to your client and the use of them. So when you're using them as well. Educate your clients. This is important as well. I'm here to educate you as a professional. You're there to educate your team, and then your team and yourself are there. The owners and the teams are there to educate your clients. So this should be, so for number 3, keeping the health of your clients top priority. This should be a practice that should be done regularly in the spa and salon, and not only during public health crisis. We need to be keeping the health of our clients all the time, top priority. Wash your hands regularly. We know over the past few months, we've heard repeatedly the words wash your hands. But once you're back in the salon and servicing clients, this is more important than ever. Hand washing, as we mentioned earlier, is the gold standard. Okay, it's the best way to fight these viruses. Your hand washing 101, always wash your hands with soap and water for 30 seconds before and after eating, smoking, using the restroom, blowing your nose, and after coughing or sneezing. But in the salon as well, it's super important to wash your hands immediately before and after servicing a client. Okay, you can also ask your client to do the same. It won't hurt to ask them, and they should be appreciative of this as well, because they will appreciate you demonstrating your diligence. Provide hand sanitizers at the front desk and at all stations. Make it visible to your client. And since lots of hand washing will be done, also make sure to have to use lotion frequently so that your skin is protected during this time as well. Most importantly, wearing gloves does not replace hand washing. Okay, wash hands with soap and water even after you remove your gloves. Ensure team members practice good hand hygiene, because washing hands with soap and water or hand sanitizers in front of clients. So instill this into your team as well. This is going to be, properly cleaning and disinfecting all areas of your business. This is key for your clients' health and well-being in general, but especially important during this COVID-19 spread. So make sure you're properly following, as we mentioned earlier, what the label is requiring of you to do when disinfecting, but also following the proper steps to prior to disinfecting or sterilizing is your cleaning step as well. Think about building your immunity. Have you ever thought about that? When I read this, I'm like, that's so true. We want to be able to build our immunity as well. So while there's no cure for COVID-19, doesn't mean that there are not ways to build your immune system. So drink lots of water, and we have the power of prebiotics or probiotics to build up our gut, and then maintain a well-balanced diet and exercise regularly. Some other reminders: stay home. So we know, simple, if you don't feel well, stay home. Think of others and avoid spreading. Ensure that the team wears the appropriate personal protective equipment when necessary with clients, such as face masks and gloves, face shields. No face shield, don't wear a face shield, and no mask. It should be a mask and then a face shield. And then once again, we mentioned avoid having clients bring their own. Keep your salon and spa fully stocked with tissue, soap, alcohol-based hand sanitizers, because this will truly encourage continual healthy habits from your staff and your clients, because it's there and it's available. For keeping hands off protocol, this is particularly difficult because of being a very hands-on industry. So, we're always welcomed by warm embraces, but we need to avoid handshaking and hugs, especially now and during our cold and flu season that will come upon us again in the fall towards winter. Most importantly, remind yourself and your staff to keep hands away from your face, especially eyes, nose, and mouth. And wearing gloves can reassure you that, because we do tend to touch our face a lot. And sometimes we do it unintentionally. We don't realize that we're doing it. But if you have gloves on too, but when you go to reach and touch your face and you see that you have gloves on, this could also remind you, wait, I shouldn't be touching my face. Keep updated. So it's extremely important to always keep up to date with what is going on with COVID-19. Follow CDC for facts as a credible source and website. Stay up to date on the advancements specifically in your state or your province, as different types of precaution measures are taken with each state or province. And then nationally and globally, know what's happening. Ongoing safety practices. So self-quarantining may be over, but doesn't mean that your at-home routine isn't important. So what you do with your personal health will carry on to your work. So what you do can either protect or make you prone to illness. Now, going into the new norm, what we're going to be seeing. So distancing. Salons and spas should consider additional spacing between booths. So sneeze shields need to be implemented. So this isn't going to be the new norm. Break rooms should be thoroughly cleaned and disinfected and no longer used for congregating by employees. So that might mean that you might have to temporarily close your break rooms. Stagger appointments. Best way to avoid a full waiting room while also limiting the pressure to rush from one client to another. Plus, that also gives you time to properly disinfect your station and wash your hands in between services. Okay, and you need to implement into your schedule when you're scheduling your services that time to clean and disinfect after your client. Avoid double booking, as we know that we will experience a rush of clients post-quarantine for those who really need to come back and get their services done. Divide shifts. Salon owners, consider having your stylist or your esthetician break up into separate shifts. This will allow them to keep a safe distance from one another and prevent overcrowding in the salon. This will also keep a limit to how many people are working in these high traffic areas, for example, like in the back bar and shampoo bowls at the same time. Screening, use of touchless infrared thermometers might be needed to be implemented into your salon, and it might be used every day on your employers and each client who enter the salon and spa. You will be implementing as well a sign-up form that each client will need to fill with correct full name, number, and email. You want to monitor who is coming into the salon, when, the dates and stuff like that, so that you know if there is an outbreak, who can be reached. A health questionnaire to determine if a client is experiencing any COVID-19-like symptoms. This should be required by each client before the appointment. Increase sanitation. So label products dirty and disinfectant and work properly out of these clean containers in front of clients. Disinfect the reception counter, door handles, phones, any writing implements at the beginning of the day and every 1 to 2 hours based on salon traffic. So even your POS, your point of purchase, your point of serve, like your debit machines, stuff like that. There's much more rules, not rules, there's much more things that you can avoid doing by having them read out their number, card number, or stuff like that, so that they're not touching the iPads or the method of payment and not using cash. Engagement. So let them know that you're more than willing to address any questions or concerns they might be having, because we know the post-coronavirus age will represent a new partnership between your business and your consumers. So demonstrate your preventative actions to your clients. And this is another thing I was mentioning earlier. Ask clients to read their card numbers to the receptionist instead of swiping, so only your staff members are touching the POS terminal. If you use an iPad or contact equipment payment methods, clean them frequently. And then you have as I mentioned, the list can go on and on. Give me 1 second. Then you have virtual appointments, creating virtual appointments, virtual tipping, contact-free mobile payments, Apple Pay, installing a plexiglass for manicures and sneeze shields. Keeps on going, the list. Wearing a face shield over your mask, wearing an apron to protect clothing. Have you thought of, before you open up your business, to get rid of magazines, booklets, brochures, or product sell sheets that are in the staff area or in the waiting area? Declutter those, get rid of those. No pens, pencils, notebooks to be exchanged between operator and client. No rebooking cards. We usually give that to remind our customer for the next service. These will have to all be done online. No reusable bags for the retail products. No returning. So if you've noticed, even other stores that you're going out to go do your curbside pickup, they're saying no refunds. So you got to make sure what you're buying you're going to keep, because you won't be able to do any refunds. No walk-ins. Avoid having these walk-ins, unnecessary people coming into the, not necessary people, but people who don't have a appointment. Clients that come alone. So, sometimes your client will come with their mother, their children, they bring their children, but at this time, it's best to avoid this, to keep this distancing, to come alone. No gift cards, once again, online if it can be done. We mentioned about this training. And no sampling or objects that encourage handling on your retail area that people are using to sample any lotions or this or that. Avoid having that as well. And another thing that I've noticed a lot in a lot of social media videos for salons that have opened is changing your clothes, your work clothes, changing them before you enter into your home, putting them in a bag and taking them right away to be washed. Okay, so these are going to be the new norms that we're going to have to deal with. Okay, and that brings us to our end here. So overall, the goal now is to share your learning and to stay up to date. So you should be promoting your reviews and always keeping your clients informed on your sanitation initiatives, connecting with industry experts on new technologies and practices to improve your customer experience, continuing to build customer trust and protect your business, and just be proud to disinfect and promote the importance of infection prevention in the industry. And with that said, this brings us to the end. And here is a slide that I will leave on here. There's a lot of resources there that you can read a lot of information to prepare yourself. But most importantly, please visit our infection control website, register, get that PDF file into your hand before you open so that you can do your pre and post, implement those procedures to yourself. Exchange it with your staff. We have our CBUN group website that you can go on to see any future webinars that we have on infection control or on our related brand Preempt. Our infection control Instagram, please go ahead and follow that for more up-to-dates. You can be able to go on there and see and hear some our CEO Jeff Alford on some radio as a radio host and hear what he has to say about our infection control program. So, and then we have myself, my trainer, my social media. I do post some stuff on there about infection control as well. So here we have all the tools that we want to help you. And if you have any questions, the education@cbungroup.com email, you can ask me, because right now we don't have time for questions because of the information that we want to give out to you today. I do appreciate your attendance. It was quite a big attendance, so we weren't able to even reach everybody's questions. So use that email, education@cbungroup.com, and I will get back to you with any concerns you have, or if you had any issues with the infection control website, and so forth. So once again, thank you so much. For those that are opening or have opened, all the best. You will make it through this. You will rebuild your business, and we'll be there to help support with our infection control program. Okay, thank you once again, and have a wonderful day.